Are you guys ready to enjoy this chapter, Risk Assessment and Internal Control by C.A. Ravi Agrawal? Hey guys, before we get started, let me tell you all that you need is Auditpedia 3.0 and you need to hear my voice. And this chapter will be made extremely easy for you. So let's get started. The name of the chapter is Risk Assessment and Internal Control. In the entire chapter, you need to focus on three topics. One is risk assessment, second is internal control, and the last one is internal check. Let's get started with risk assessment. What is risk assessment? Assess the level of risk in the various business process. Here what you have to do, you have to assess what the level of risk in the various business process. Next topic is audit risk here. So what is audit risk? What is audit risk? Audit risk is the risk that auditor may give what kind of opinion? Inappropriate opinion. So audit risk is the risk that auditor may give inappropriate opinion on the financial statement which are materially misstated. Okay, so audit risk is the risk that auditor may give inappropriate opinion on the financial statement which are materially misstated. See, in audit risk, you need to consider audit risk at two levels. One is at overall level, that is financial statement level, and the second is assertion level, that is at particular area. Okay, so audit risk, and auditor is going to consider it at two level, at overall level, financial statement level, at specific area, that is at assertion level. Guys, there are total three kind of audit risk. One is inherent risk, second is controlled risk, and the third is detection risk. Okay, if you combine inherent risk and controlled risk, you get risk of material misstatement. So you can simply say the risk of material misstatement, one kind of risk, and the another risk is detection risk. Or if you want to elaborate and say, then total three kind of risk is there. One, inherent risk, second, controlled risk, and the third is detection risk. So now we are going to study about three types or the components of audit risk, basically, right? But what is audit risk? I told you audit is the risk that auditor may give inappropriate opinion on the financial statement which are materially misstated. Let's study all the three kind of risk one by one. Okay, inherent risk. Here in inherent risk, assume. Okay, in inherent risk, we assume that internal control system exists or does not exist. It does not exist. So in inherent risk, we assume that internal control does not exist, and there will be, okay, there is always a risk of material misstatement in ABCD. What is ABCD? Account balance, class of transaction, and disclosure. Okay, so in inherent risk, we assume that internal control system exists or does not exist. It does not exist, and there is always a risk of material misstatement in account balance, class of transaction, and disclosure, that is ABCD. Okay, so inherent risk is done. Next is control risk. Okay, in control risk, okay, the risk of material misstatement that cannot be prevented, detected, corrected by existing internal control system. It means internal control system is there. Okay, there exists control system, internal control system is there, but still there is a risk of material misstatement that cannot be prevented, detected, and corrected. That is control risk. And the last part of the risk is detection risk. Okay, a risk that even if substantive procedure are performed by the auditor, it will not be able to detect misstatement that exists in ABCD. Risk, what is detection risk? Is a risk that even if the substantive procedure are performed by the auditor, it will not be able to detect misstatement that exists in ABCD, that is account balance, class of transaction, disclosure. So what we have studied till now, we are studying risk assessment. In risk assessment, we see what is risk assessment. Is risk assessment, you have to assess the level of risk in the various business process. Next is audit risk. There are three kind of audit risk. What is audit risk? Audit is a risk that even if an auditor audit is the risk that an auditor may give inappropriate opinion on the financial statement which are materially misstated. Three kind of audit risk is there. First is inherent risk. What is inherent risk? Here we assume that internal control system does not exist, and there will be always a risk of material misstatement in ABCD. Second is control risk. The risk of material misstatement that cannot be prevented, detected, corrected by existing internal control system is control risk. And then detection risk. Detection risk is the risk that even if substantive procedure are performed by the auditor, it will not be able to detect the misstatement that exists in ABCD. Okay, now the three type of assertion that we have just seen. Three type of assertion were: number one, what are the three kind of assertion? I told you ABCD. AB is account balance, C is your class of transaction, D is your disclosure. So the next question is asking you how auditor will consider the misstatement in the various type of assertion. Okay, so the type of assertion, let's discuss one by one. ABCD. AB is account balance. So if you talk about account balance, that is the balance of the balance sheet, here how auditor will consider the misstatement. Let's talk about, there are total how many points? 4 points are there. So existence. So first of all, you need to check account balance is balance sheet, right? So you need to check the asset, liability side, the equity interest, whether they actually exist or not. You need to check the existence. Okay, what are we discussing? We are discussing the type of assertion used by the auditor to consider different potential of misstatement that may occur, right? How auditor will consider the misstatement? If you talk about in account balance, first of all it will check existence, whether this asset, okay, whether the liability, okay, whether the equity interest, they actually exist or not. Right and obligation, you need to see whether the entity hold right to asset or not, liabilities are obligation or not. You need to check all this. Like being an auditor, you need to check this. Completeness, auditor will check. Okay, we are checking account balance, no, whether misstatement is here or not. So related to completeness, auditor will check all the assets, liabilities, equity interest that should have been recorded are recorded or not. Okay, this is how auditor will check the completeness. Whatever assets, liability, equity interest that should have been recorded are recorded or not. And the last point is account balance is valuation and allocation. So auditor will check whether the assets, liability, equity, interest are included in the financial statement, are properly valued and allocated and adjusted properly and recorded or not. Okay, so they'll just check whether this asset, liability, equity, interest are properly valued, allocated or not. So this is how you will check the misstatement in account balance. Let's see the next assertion, that is A, B, C, D. A, B is account balance, then B, C is your class of transaction, that is your PNL, profit and loss account. So how will you check whether there is a misstatement in a class of transaction or not? So let's see the occurrence point. Okay, so transaction and the event that have been recorded have occurred or not. Okay, whatever transaction or event that you have recorded have actually occurred or not. Occurrence. Completeness, all transactions that should have been recorded or not. That is completeness. Accuracy, okay, the amounts have been properly, appropriately recorded or not. Then is classification, transactions have been recorded in the proper account or not. You need to check in that classification. Now ABC is done. Next is D, disclosure. So how will you consider a misstatement in disclosure? You will see four points here also. One is occurrence, disclosed transactions have occurred or not. Okay, disclosed transaction, the transaction which you have disclosed, they have actually occurred or not. Then you will see completeness. More or less all the points are same, just the meaning is different. Meaning you have to say according to the point. Like we are studying disclosure, so for in occurrence point we will say disclosed event have actually occurred or not. Completeness, if you talk about all disclosures that should have been made in the financial statement have been included or not. Now classification, okay, financial information is appropriately disclosed or not, right? Next is occurrence and valuation. So financial information are disclosed at appropriate amount or not. So we are done with this type of assertion. How will you consider the misstatement here? Next is steps for risk identification. What are we studying? We're studying risk assessment. So the next question here is steps for risk identification. What are the steps to identify risk? I have made a mnemonic for it. Please write it down. Ladies UPI. What is it? LADIES, ladies. Then UPI. L is, determine the likelihood for assessed risk. Okay, first is ladies, L is likelihood, determine the likelihood for assessed risk, find out the chances of assessed risk. A is assess significance of risk. D is document the assertion that are affected. What are we studying? We're studying steps for risk identification. How will you identify the risk? So ladies UPI. L is, tell me guys, L is determine likelihood for assessed risk. A is assess the significance of risk. D is document assertion that are affected. I is consider the impact of risk. Consider the impact. Impact of the risk. E is inquire the management response. Inquire about the management response. S is, significant risk. Identify degree of significant risk. Ladies is done. Next is UPI. U is consider unique characteristics of the risk. Okay, unique, if there is any unique characteristic of the risk, identify it, consider it. P is particular characteristics. Okay, consider existence of any particular characteristics. And UPI, I is internal control system. Consider the nature of internal control system. So steps for risk identification is done. It's in your pocket. All that you need to remember is ladies UPI. Once again, L is, likelihood of assessed risk. A is assess the significance of assessed risk. D is document assertion that are affected. I is your impact of the risk. You need to consider that. E is your inquire management response. Then it's S is your consider degree of significant risk. Ladies is done. UPI. U is your consider unique characteristics of the risk. P is particular check existence of any particular risk. And I is your internal control system. Consider nature of internal control system. So steps for risk identification, I don't think you will ever forget it. So it's done. Next is a relationship between inherent risk and controlled risk. Guys, I'm studying it from Auditpedia 3.0. You must have this book. Beautiful book. You just visit my website and get this book, Auditpedia 3.0, and hear my audio for all the chapters for audit, CA final audit. Now, the relationship between inherent risk and control risk, very simple. These two, inherent risk and control risk, are highly interrelated. Based on the inherent risk, okay, we are going to design our internal control system. The first relationship. What did I say? I said inherent risk and control risk both are highly interrelated. Based on your inherent risk, we are going to design our internal control system. One relationship. Second, risk of material misstatement would be appropriately determined. How will you determine this? ROMM. Okay, we know this that if we combine inherent risk and control risk, we are going to get risk of material misstatement. So rightly said in point number 2, the risk of material misstatement would be appropriately determined only on combined assessment of inherent risk and control risk. So two relationship, guys, remember. Next, a relationship between now a risk of material misstatement and detection risk. What is the relationship between both of them? Number one, let me tell you, the important one is there is an inverse relationship between risk of material misstatement and detection risk. Okay, let's consider if the risk of material misstatement is high. Okay, risk of material misstatement is high. Then what are we going to do? We are going to increase the sample size, and accordingly, the detection risk will be low. Say for example, risk of material misstatement is low. In that case, we will collect less sample. Okay, and then accordingly, the detection risk will be higher. Okay, the next question, we are moving to RBA, risk-based audit. What is risk-based audit? There are basically 3 points here. First of all, in risk-based audit, we analyze our audit risk, number one. Then we set our materiality threshold as per SA 320, and then lastly, we develop audit program. What is audit program? Here we allocate our team members. Okay, I will tell you that we have already studied in stages of audit. The 4th stage is audit program. Okay. Now, what are we studying? RBA, right? Risk-based audit. There are total 3 points here. One, you need to analyze audit risk. Second, you need to set materiality threshold, and the last one, we develop audit program. Correct? Done. Then the next question is steps in conduct of RBA. Okay, what are the general phases? What are the steps in conduct of risk-based audit? There are total 3 steps. One, you risk assessment. Here you assess the level of risk. Okay, assess the risk of material misstatement. Risk assessment, step number 1. Step number 2, once the risk is assessed, then you respond to the risk. Okay, how do you respond to the risk? By designing or performing further audit procedure. And lastly, you report it. Okay, report. Okay, appropriate audit report. Okay, based on the audit finding. So total 3 steps of risk-based audit. What is risk-based audit? 3 point. 1, analyze the audit risk. Set materiality threshold. Develop audit program. What are the steps in conduct of a risk-based audit? 3 steps. Risk assessment. According to the assessed risk, you risk response, and accordingly, based on the finding, you prepare appropriate audit report. That is reporting. Let's study one by one. First is risk assessment. So what do you do here? First of all, you plan the audit, plan the overall engagement. Okay, planning the overall engagement according to the plan. Okay, once the planning and all everything is done, you identify the risk, inherent risk, control risk. According to the inherent risk and the control risk, you design and implement internal control. Okay, and then you assess the risk of material misstatement, and then finally you communicate the weakness, okay, to the weakness in the internal control to the management and TCWG. Very simple. What do you do in overall risk assessment? You plan the overall engagement, you identify inherent risk, control risk, you assess. Okay, assess what? Assess this. Once you identify the inherent risk and control risk, you design internal control. Okay, and then you assess the risk of material misstatement, and lastly you communicate the weakness in internal control to management and TCWG. The first step to RBA is done. Next step is risk response. Okay, once the assessment is done, now you respond to the risk. How do you respond? I already told you, you design further audit procedure. Okay, there's a question here which is asked in exam once. It says what are the matter to be considered when planning audit procedure? You said no, you will design further audit procedure. So what all you are going to consider while planning audit procedure. Okay, I told you mnemonic for this is AIMS, AIMS. AIMS is A is your assertion that cannot be addressed by substantive procedure also. Okay, so what are the matter that we need to consider when planning audit procedure? First is assertion that cannot be addressed by substantive procedure alone. Okay, even if the substantive procedure are applied, assertion that cannot be addressed, find out that thing. A is assertion that cannot be addressed by substantive procedure. AIMS, AIMS. I is internal control, existence of internal control. Find out whether the internal control exists or not. M is management override of control. Okay, find out whether management is overriding control or not. M and S is specific procedure. Find out the need to perform specific procedure to address significant risk. Whatever we are studying the second step of RBA, that is risk response. And in the risk response, we got to know that we need to design and perform further audit procedure. And what are the matter that need to consider when planning audit procedure is AIMS. AIM is assertion that cannot be addressed by substantive procedure. I is your existence of internal control, and M is management override of control, and S is perform a specific procedure. Then finally we need to report. The third step of RBA is reporting, and in reporting, when all the procedures have been performed, conclusion is reached, audit finding should be report. Whatever there is audit finding, you need to report it to the management and TCWG, and audit opinion should be formed. The very simple step in reporting, what we do when all the procedure conclusion are reached, all the procedures are performed, conclusion are reached, audit finding need to be reported to management and TCWG, and audit opinion should be formed. I told you guys it's all about understanding. Now let me inform you, congratulations, the entire topic risk assessment is done. There are total 3 topics that we need to study here in this chapter: risk assessment, internal control, internal check. Risk assessment is finally done. What have we read here? We've read what is risk assessment. Very simple. Audit risk. Audit risk is the risk that auditor may give inappropriate opinion on the financial statement which are materially misstated. 3 kind of audit risk: inherent risk, control risk, detection risk. Then we saw the type of assertion, how misstatement will be considered here in ABCD, right? And then steps of risk identification, ladies UPI, and then relationship between inherent risk, control risk, relationship between risk of material misstatement and detection risk, and what is RBA and what are the steps in RBA. We are done, guys. And next is internal control. Very simple topic. Too simple topic. Internal control. We are sick and tired of hearing this word internal control, but let me tell you, you don't know what is internal control. Through this audio you will understand. Internal control is nothing but it is a policy, it is a procedure, it is a system. Who designs it, who implements it, who maintains it? TCWG or management. So it is nothing but it is a policy, it is a procedure, it is a system, it is designed, implemented, maintained by TCWG and management. For what joy? To prevent, detect, correct material misstatement on timely basis. It's done. So internal control system is nothing, it's just a policy, it's just a procedure, it's just a system designed by whom? Designed and implemented and maintained by TCWG and management. For what joy? For why? To prevent, to detect, correct material misstatement on the timely basis. So 3 points you have to say whenever this question comes: internal control, and get this clear in your head. It's nothing but it's a policy, it's a procedure, it's a system. It is designed, it is implemented, it is maintained by management, TCWG, to prevent, detect, correct material misstatement on timely basis. Now, what is the scope of internal control system? I'm asking you the general scope of internal control system. 1, it helps you in compliance with law and regulation. Okay, internal control system helps me in compliance with law and regulation. Yes. In safeguarding of asset, okay, to ensure reliability of financial statement, and lastly in effectiveness and efficiency of operation. Okay, so if I put this internal control in my business, it will help me in compliance with law and regulation. Yes. It will help me in safeguarding of asset. Yes. It will help me to ensure reliability of financial reporting. Yes. It will help me in effectiveness and efficiency of operation. Yes. So the 4 scope of internal control system is done. Next, now they are asking you accounting system, objective of internal control regarding accounting system. Oh, internal control objective related to accounting system. Yeah, again there are 4 points. If you talk about transactions, okay, internal control system helps you. Transactions are executed by management authorization. The first objective related to accounting system is transactions are executed. How transactions are executed? If there is internal control in your organization, transactions are executed by management authorization. Okay, transactions are promptly recorded in appropriate manner. Okay, if there is internal control in your organization, transactions are promptly recorded in appropriate manner. This is related to transaction. 2 point related to transaction. Transactions are executed by management authorization. Transactions are properly recorded in appropriate manner. Okay, this is then the next two objective related to internal control related to accounting system. Assets are safeguard from unauthorized access. Okay, the third objective, and the last one, assets are verified at reasonable interval. Okay, so transaction, what you have to check here, what are the objectives related to transaction are executed by management authorization, transaction are promptly recorded in appropriate manner. If we talk about assets are safeguard from unauthorized access, and assets are verified at reasonable interval. We are done. And the next question, accounting control system. Okay, now they're telling you accounting control system, basic accounting control objectives achieved by accounting control system. So accounting control systems, what are the objectives? Transaction should be properly valued, transaction should be properly posted, transaction should be properly disclosed, transaction should be properly summarized. So simple. So what is the accounting control system's objective? Accounting control system objective is transaction should be properly valued, posted, disclosed, summarized. Done. Transaction should be properly valued. Of course, it should be properly posted, it should be properly disclosed, it should be properly summarized. Now, next question is very interesting because the mnemonic which I made is little interesting to me. What is that? Internal control system. Okay, what are the inherent limitation of internal control system? What are the inherent limitation of internal control system? If you understand Hindi, the mnemonic will be very easy for you. It's called chumma. CHUMA. Don't get me wrong, but to memorize it in a very quick way, the chumma will help you a lot. So what is chumma? Chumma is C is what is the question? First of all, focus on the question, then mnemonic, and then answer will be tasty. Inherent limitation of internal control. Inherent, what is the inherent limitation of internal control? It's called chumma. C is cost. You know what? We find that cost is more than expected benefit. Okay, this is an inherent limitation. That's true. That sometimes we find that cost is more than expected benefit. Chumma C. H is human error. Okay, there is a potential for human error. That is true. There is potential for, even if internal control system is there, still there is a potential for human error. That's right. CHUMA, chumma. C is cost is more than expected benefit. H is we find potential for human error. Okay, CH, human error. U, chumma, CHU is we find that there's unusual transaction. Still we put in the internal control, still we find that there is still unusual transaction. Okay, no control over unusual transaction even if internal control is there. So no control over unusual transaction. Okay, these are the inherent limitations. Chumma, CHUM. M is your manipulation by management. Oh my god, even if internal control system is there, still because of the inherent limitation there is manipulation by management. CHUMA. A is abuse by authority. Okay, possibility that the person responsible for exercising internal control could abuse that responsibility. Oh my god. But the answer now, I believe you will never ever forget that what is the inherent limitation of internal control, the very famous question of ICI. The answer is chumma. Take chumma. C is your cost. Cost is more than expected benefit. H is human. The UV, we find that there is a potential for human error. CHU, U is unusual transaction. No control over unusual transaction. M you find that manipulation by management. And A, abuse of authority. Will you ever forget this answer? WhatsApp me on 8348666117. Say that, sir, I'm in love with audit, and if you can teach the entire audit through this audio clips, I'm ready to score 60 plus in audit. I will be waiting for your WhatsApp. Now the next question for internal control, save my number also. Now the next question for internal control is structure of internal control. Guys, I made another interesting mnemonic for you. If you are a wife or if you are going to become someone's wife, independent sass, in Hindi we call sass. Okay, independent sass, mother-in-law. So the structure of internal control is, raise your hand, guys, come on, raise your hand, study audit. The structure for internal control is independent sass. SAAS. Okay, the structure for internal control policy and procedure, what it covers. Okay, basically structure of internal control means what does your policy and procedure of internal control, what it covers. It covers independent SAS. What is independent SAS? Independent is independent check. SAS is, S is segregation of duty, A is authorization of transaction, A is adequacy of record and document, and S is safeguarding of assets. So will you ever forget in structure of internal control? Raise your hand. Independent SAS. Independent is independent check. S is segregation of duty. A is authorization of transaction. A is adequacy of record, and S is safeguarding of asset. Let's study and understand one by one. Independence as structure of internal control. Independent check is to find out whether control procedure are operating effectively or not. Independent check means here you find out whether the control procedure are operating effectively or not. Okay. Independent check is done. And SAS, segregation of duty. Okay. No single person can complete transaction from start to finish. Okay, following functions are segregated: authorization of transaction done by someone else, execution of transaction done by someone else, physical custody of related asset done by someone else, maintenance of record done by someone else. Okay, check all this. Segregation of duty is there or not. SAS, asset segregation of duty. A is authorization of transaction, A is adequacy of record, and S is safeguarding of asset. Then we've done segregation of duty. Now we are coming to authorization of transaction, maybe general or specific, related to with reference to single transaction also. Okay, so authorization may be general, may be specific. Okay, next is adequacy of record and document. Okay, so transaction should be authorized by management, transaction should be recorded at correct amount, transaction should be classified in appropriate amount, transaction should be recorded in a manner that financial statement are prepared as per AS and accounting policy, asset should be protected from unauthorized access. So this is how we call it adequacy of record and document. And then the last one is safeguarding of asset, that requires appropriate maintenance of record and periodic reconciliation. If you can do this, then your asset is safeguarded. So the question was structure of internal control. Guys, raise your hand and tell me what is the mnemonic. Independent SAS. I is independent check. SAS is segregation of duty, authorization of transaction, adequacy of record and document, and safeguarding of assets. Tell me guys, can anyone teach audit, CFA and audit like this in India? No, not at all. Next question is internal control components. Now, what are the components of internal control? Components of internal control is, what are you doing? Audit. No, you are doing CA first of all. CA ka aim. Component of internal control is CA ka aim. C is control environment. C, control environment. CA, control activities. Activities AA, control activities, right? So there are total 5 components of internal control. CA ka aim. C is control environment, A is control activities, and aim is risk assessment procedure, assessment process, and AIM. I is information system and M is monitoring. CA ka aim is your 5 components of internal control. Very important question. Okay, these things are copied from ISCA, I believe. Okay, we had ISCA in CA panel, right? So components of internal control. CA ka aim. C is your control environment, A is your activities, control activities, and aim, A is your assessment, risk assessment process, and I is your information system, and M is your monitoring. So 5 components of internal control. Straight it went into your head and you will not forget. Next, we take the first component, that is control environment. Next question is related to the first component of internal control, that is control environment. What are the elements of control environment? I always keep telling you, you are my champ. You are my champ. The mnemonic for this is champ. CHAMP, champ. What is the question? Elements of control environment. Champ. C is communicate. Communication of integrity and ethical value. Check if in that business there is communication of ethical values, integrities and all that stuff is there or not. CH, check whether there is a human resource policy practice there in the organization or not. CH, human resources policy and practices. A, okay, check whether there is assignment of authority, responsibility there or not. M, okay, check the management operating style. And P, participation by TCWG. Check whether that TCWG is participating or not. That's how you understand the environment of that organization. Control environment, we say. Okay, how do you understand its environment? We check the ethical values, we check whether there is policy related to human resources or not. We see how this whether there is assignment of responsibilities, authorities or not, and then we see the management operating style, and then we finally see whether that TCWG is participating or not. CHAMP, CHAMP. Okay, now the next question is, how will you assess and evaluate control environment? We are focusing on control environment now. Okay, so we understood that there are total how many elements? There are total 5 elements of control environment. Now we want to understand how will you assess and evaluate control environment. We are not desi boys, but we are going to do desi job. Okay, how will you assess and evaluate control environment? Desi job. What? Desi job is a mnemonic. How will you assess and evaluate control environment? We will do Desi job. What is Desi? D is your delegation of financial power. Okay. D is Desi. D is delegation of financial power. E is ERM, enterprise risk management. S segregation of job responsibility. I is information system. Okay, what is the question? Can you please tell me? How will you assess and evaluate control environment? How will you assess and evaluate control environment? Control environment. How will I assess and evaluate? Desi job. D is delegation of financial power. E is enterprise risk management. S is segregation of job responsibility. D S I is information technology, and job is job rotation in sensitive area. Done. Let's understand this question and then it will be in your pocket. The question is, how will you assess and evaluate control environment? How will you assess and evaluate control environment? Desi job. D is delegation of financial power. Okay, or as organization grow, it needs to delegate financial power, other power to their employees. As the organization grows, it needs to delegate financial and other powers to their employees. Delegation of financial power. ERM. Whether organization has ERM to mitigate risk. Check. Whether organization has risk enterprise risk management to mitigate risk. Check. No. Whether organization has ERM to mitigate risk. ERM, enterprise risk management. S, segregation of job responsibility. Key element of control is that multiple activity decision not to be concentrated with one individual. That's right. Segregation of job responsibility has to be there. DSI is your information technology based control. Easier. Okay, it has become very easy. Controls with the help of information technology, that is computer, it has become easier. Okay, easier to control and to have better audit trail, and thus easier to monitor. Very good. Desi is done. Now job rotation in sensitive areas. See guys, job carried out by one person over long period may lead to misuse in sensitive areas. Thus rotation is to be regularly followed. Absolutely. So we are done with this question. What was the question? How will you assess and evaluate control environment? Desi job. Next question is category of control activities. So we were studying components of internal control. I told you C is control environment. We've done sufficient question related to control environment. Next component is control activities. Control activities. Now you actually have to put the control in the organization. Control means lock. Okay, so that the thief doesn't get inside your house. What do you put? Control. No, lock. That's what is control activities. So in various ways we can put control. What are those ways? 4 ways. One is performance review. You keep checking it. Right? Performance review. You keep doing the review. Second is by computer, that is information processing. And third is a physical way, physical control. Okay. And last way of control activities is segregation of duty. Okay, you are going to do this task, but you are going to do this task, like we segregate the duties, right? Control, physical control, information processing, you put the computers. And fourth is performance review. So there are 4 ways, 4 category through which we can control activities is performance review, information processing, physical control, and segregation of duty. Say me that you are in love with audit. I can't hear you. You are. I know this. Next question is circumstances through which risk can arise. Oh my God. Circumstances. The question they're asking you. Tell me the circumstances through which risk can arise. Very simple question. How can risk arise? What are the circumstances? What are the situations through which risk can arise? Risk can arise through new personnel. Okay, new personnel entering in your organization, risk can arise. New computer, that is information system entering in your organization, risk can arise. New technology, risk can arise. New product, new accounting pronouncement by ICI or anyone, government, the risk can arise. Okay, so how, through what circumstances, through what situation risk can arise? Through new personnel, through new information system, through new technology, through new product, through new accounting pronouncement. Damn easy, yaar. Next question is 3 methods for evaluation internal control. 3 methods for evaluation of internal control. I want to evaluate internal control. What are the 3 methods through which I can evaluate internal control? One is questionnaire, second is checklist, third is flowchart. Questionnaire is one method through which I can evaluate internal control. Then is checklist, then is flowchart. Let's understand each one of them one by one. Very easy. Questionnaire. So in questionnaire, what happened? Okay, there are some general questions and there are some question on which this auditor has to answer. First is organization permit division of responsibilities and duties. Okay, so see, what is questionnaire? There are standard internal control questionnaire, basic assumption of element of good control. So in questionnaire, what all we have to check? We have to check number one, organization uh, permit extensive division of duties and responsibility. Oh, auditor will check. Acha, organization is permitting division of duties and responsibility. Very good. Second, employees concerned with accounting function are not assigned custodian function. There is the both matlab same person not doing the both task. Employee concerned with accounting function are not assigned custodial function also. No single person with responsibility of completing transaction all by himself. That's true. The auditor will check that also. Next is work performed by one is expected to come under review of another. We'll check that also in questionnaire. And then proper documentation, recording of transaction is going on or not. So this is what auditor does in the questionnaire. Will check all the points related to this through questionnaire. This is how auditor checks internal control. The second way through which auditor check internal control is checklist. How they evaluate? The second way to evaluate internal control is checklist. A series of questions on internal control which auditor must answer. Series of questions on internal control which auditor must answer. Okay, here the question answer will be generally in form yes. It will be in form of yes or no or not applicable. Okay, so the 2 points you have to say if they ask you question related to checklist. 1 point you'll say that it's one of the way to evaluate internal control, and here the series of questions on internal control which auditor must answer, and the answer will be in form of yes, no, not applicable. Done. They ask you what is the difference between internal control questionnaire and checklist. What is the difference between questionnaire and checklist? You say that the questionnaire is detailed, checklist is basically contains the question relating to main control objective. Okay, so this questionnaire, large number of detailed question is there. Okay, what happened in questionnaire? Large number of detailed question is there. Okay, but in checklist contains question related to main control only. And the second difference is in questionnaire weakness are highlighted in yes, but in a checklist weakness are highlighted in no. Very simple. Next way to evaluate internal control is flowchart. Flowchart, very two 3 points you need to say that is a graphical presentation of internal control. It is concise, it is or and comprehensive way of reviewing internal control, and the last is the most effective way of presenting the state of internal control. Simple, very simple graphical presentation of internal control in organization is concise and comprehensive way for reviewing internal control and most effective way of presenting stage of internal control. Now there's a question we all have studied essay 265, identifying the deficiency in internal control, communicating deficiency in internal control. Okay, 265, essay 265. Okay, if you've not studied, you can hear my audio on essay 265. What is it? Communicating deficiency in internal control to TCWG and management. So in this point, what are we studying? We're studying internal control. No, so communicating deficiency in internal control to TCWG. So there we draft a letter of weakness. Okay, so the important point to be kept while drafting letter of weakness. What is it? Okay, so significant deficiency in internal control. Wherever there is a significant deficiency in internal control, description of deficiency and their potential effect. Okay, description of deficiency and explanation of their potential effect. Sufficient information to enable management TCWG to understand. Auditor shall explain purpose of audit was for auditor to express opinion. Yeah, my purpose, see, auditor, being an auditor, you have to say my purpose is not to my purpose is just to express opinion on the financial statement. My purpose is never to find out the deficiency in the internal control, right? You say that my primary objective and my purpose is to express opinion on the financial statement. So for regarding letter of weakness, what all have to write? First of all, description of deficiency that you found out, and sufficient information to enable management TCWG to understand the communication. Third, you clearly state that your purpose of audit is to express opinion on the financial statement, but not expressing opinion on the effectiveness of internal control. Exactly, my purpose of audit is to give the opinion on the financial statement, but not expressing opinion on the effectiveness of internal control. My job, I have never been appointed to give opinion on the effectiveness of internal control, right? You will write it in the letter of weakness. And matter reported are those limited to deficiency, and whatever I'm writing related to deficiency, the matter reported are limited to those deficiencies that auditor identified during audit. Whatever I have identified during audit, that's what I'm writing it to you. Okay, and I will communicate this to management. And communication in writing through letter of weakness. See, what is letter of weakness? Basically, these are a list down of areas of weakness in the system. I am offering you suggestion for improvement, and it should clearly indicate that it discusses only weakness and not been designed to determine adequacy of internal control. I'm not telling you whether your internal control is adequate or not adequate. This is just a weakness. It's just a suggestion. It's just a suggestion for your improvement. Correct? So very done. So what did you understand here by letter of weakness? It will be a written form, and this is just here you just tell the management or TCWG, give explanation, and you just say that my purpose of audit is to express opinion on the financial statement and not expressing opinion on the internal control, effectiveness of internal control. And you will what is it, letter of weakness is just area of weakness is just a suggestion for improvement, and clearly state that it discuss only weakness. Okay, what it does, it discuss only weakness and not designed to determine adequacy of internal control. So simple. And the last, we are done with this topic, internal control. Now the last part, the easiest part of this chapter is internal control system. Are you ready to crack the last part? And then the entire chapter will be in your pocket. So the internal check. What is internal check system? Day-to-day transaction check. Okay, check day-to-day transaction. Internal check is what? Check on day-to-day transaction. Is a part of routine work. Okay, so what did you understand by the last part of this topic? Internal check. Internal check is nothing but a check on day-to-day transaction. It's a part of routine check. What is the objective of internal check? Can you tell me? Yeah, there are total 3 objectives of internal check, mainly 3 4. So one is prevent. I have made this mnemonic if you like it. If you internal check, what is internal check? Day-to-day transaction you have to check. It's a routine work. What is the objective of internal check? Mnemonic is cash versus dill. Cash versus dill. Cash is prevent embezzlement of cash. Okay, the first objective of internal check system is prevent embezzlement of cash. Okay, if there is internal check in your system, it will prevent your embezzlement of cash. One, dill is D is detect fraud and error. I is increase efficiency of staff. Okay, if there is internal check, it will help you to prevent embezzlement of cash. Dill, it will help you to detect fraud and error. D, I is increase efficiency of staff. All right. And then L, DIL, L is locate area where actual fraud take place. Locate area where actual fraud take place. Very good. Well done. Objective of internal check is done. Next is effectiveness of internal check system depend on 4 things. Effectiveness of internal check system depends on 4 things. One is clarity of responsibility, division of work, standardization and appraisal. Okay, effectiveness of internal check system depend on 4 things: clarity of responsibility, division of work, standardization and appraisal. And the last question of this entire chapter, general condition relating to internal check system. Okay, general condition relating to internal check system. What all you are going to check? One, related to staff, there are 4 points. Related to staff, there are 4 points. First point is no single person should have complete control, okay, of the business operation. No single person should have complete control of the business operation. Number 1. Number 2, employee action should come under review of another. You know this. These are the miscellaneous point. Third, staff duty should be rotated from time to time. And the last one is related to staff. Every member of the staff should be encouraged to go on leave at least once a year. And the last point for this general condition relating to internal check system is mechanical devices should be used to prevent loss or misappropriation of cash. So what are these? General condition 1, no single person should have complete control of the business operation. Every employee should come under a review of another person. Staff should be rotated from time to time, and every member of the staff should be encouraged to go on leave at least once a year, and mechanical device should be used to prevent loss. Guys, I'm reading it from Auditpedia 3.0, and I believe that you love this chapter, and this is a very easy chapter. All that you need is proper understanding and my audio clips and my Auditpedia 3.0, and I'm giving you all. So risk assessment, internal control and internal check, this chapter is done in your pocket. And yeah, I want to say that tell your friend, inform your friend to join my Telegram channel and use this book. You are getting 100% exemption in this subject. And if you have anything to ask me, you can WhatsApp me on 8334 866 117. And bye bye, see you in next chapter.